Hello, hello, hello. It is a different night than we normally do this. It is Thursday night. We are hanging out. I don't even know why we didn't go Monday. Why didn't we? I was out of town.
Because your fault.
It was your fault.
Allie's fault. That's why.
Listen, sometimes you've got to go visit the mouse, and my kids didn't have school. And so here we are on a Thursday night. Allie Peak, TJ Pittinger, Will Thomas, hanging out with you. There is so much to discuss this upcoming week of college football. There are awesome games, and there are a lot of very, very interesting storylines that we are going to get into. We don't even need to wrap up last week. Last week felt like it happened forever ago. All I know is my team did not actually show up on the field on Saturday. We're going to pretend it was a fever dream. TJ, you don't think your team showed up, did you?
I showed up, though. I did my part.
You did.
That's all that really matters for me anymore is if I show up and do my part, we got to, as a Florida State Nation, we still got an F, but I at least turned something in for my assignment. So.
Okay. Well, then maybe that's how Will and I feel too. We wore our fandom, but here we are. Okay, so what do we want to discuss first? Do we want to discuss the Lane Kiffin Bowl? Both. I will give you full credit, Will.
Thank you.
Said it on your show first. I did say it on my show as well after the fact. The Lane, I did not cheat though. I did not copy your homework. I didn't see it.
Skipped the day, copied homework. Yeah, there's a trend here.
Listen, the Lane Kiffin Bowl in Oxford. We don't even need to actually talk about the football game to have so much to get into. This is so wild. But Saturday night, Oxford under the lights. It is the Lane Kiffin Bowl. Ole Miss 9-1, chasing a playoff berth, and Florida is just hanging on by a thread. Normally, this is not a matchup that would be getting the kind of fanfare that this one is. But I think just so many underlying storylines make it the game that everybody wants to talk about. The message boards have been going crazy the last 24 hours. Florida fans are pretty confident that their next head coach will be actually on the opposite sideline on Saturday. But Will, what is your favorite portion of this week's drama?
100% my favorite part is just this afternoon, from this morning to this afternoon even, you could still see Ole Miss fans, they're still being sassy. They're still acting like they have all the chips. Then all of a sudden it comes out that yeah, guys, Florida can offer Lane way more money. They can offer him what he wants in NIL. They can make him the highest paid coach in the sport. And then within an hour, you're seeing coaching hot boards pop up on Ole Miss forums where they're listing new names where they want to have. They're officially at the acceptance stage of grief. That's where they are now, it seems. I'd be obviously not a done deal, but I would be shocked if Kiffin doesn't go to Florida. And you're seeing the Ole Miss fans who had a lot of things to say to me and Allie, both individually. I think Allie probably got it worse than I did. But just when this first all started coming out, they're changing their tune a lot. And that admittedly has been a little fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. I cannot explain to you guys the amount of restraint that it takes for me to not already start pulling receipts, but I've promised myself I will wait until the ink is dry. And then every single tweet that I bookmarked will be making an appearance, but I'm trying not to jinx it. I'm doing my part, TJ, as you would say, to not jinx this situation by not gloating until it actually happens. But, TJ, last week, Ole Miss fans were convinced that this was not even a possibility. Florida fans have been pretty confident for the last couple of weeks, the kind of news that we had been hearing, the background stuff going on, that there was a good chance this was going to happen. Not necessarily a done deal for sure, but this is what both parties wanted. What do you think changed in the past couple of days?
Well, on Florida's side, nothing. Florida fans have been are confident about everything, whether there's reason to or not, right? I don't even mean that as a dig, but Florida has, they are one of the top. I have Florida and Florida State you just look at win percentage and titles and Heisman's. Florida is very comfortably in that top 10 to 15 range all time as a program. They should be confident that they can pull somebody from Ole Miss. That's not you
Even
know,
in the new NIL era.
yeah. I mean, well, yeah, and they have more NIL money. So even in that era, like if this was a coach at Auburn, like I think Florida is a better job than Auburn, and I think Florida is a better all-time program than Auburn. But I don't know that Florida would pull a coach from there. Like a historically great program
for you at that point, like whether you
yeah, like they're just
like
Florida might be better, but they're not that much better than you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like Auburn's still an elite. I mean, I don't know about still, but they're an elite all-time program or like a very above average. Like Ole Miss just doesn't have that history, you know, and I think that does matter. I think it matters less now than ever. But it still means something.
It mattered last week when he was asked about what makes a top program. Most of the things he listed were not things that Ole Miss has. He talked about stadium capacity. He talked about NIL support, which they do have. He talked about, fans showing up for games. He talked about Heisman trophies. He talked about national championships. Just things that when you talk about size of stadium, you are absolutely not picturing Ole Miss. When you're picturing several Heisman Trophy winners, you're not picturing Ole Miss. Never won a national championship. So when you say, national championships indicate a good program, you can't be talking about the program that you're at.
I don't even know if any of that. I mean, I do think that answer was telling. I don't even know if it was any of that. I just think, you saw the odds make a massive jump. And I think a lot of the odds stuff is just people betting on it. Like, I don't think the odds makers are really shifting odds once they put them out initially. I think they just let the general public waste their money. Yeah. And then they just try and control liability. But yeah, I just think that the longer it goes, the more you had to feel bad as an Ole Miss fan.
Yeah, because he could put an end to this very easily, just like Cignetti has done. Just like
Jeff Brom and everybody else, and his answers are half and half, even if he, Brent Key came out and said, he didn't say,
I believe for this program, essentially. And
if he had said that, if he'd have given any kind of indication. So just the longer and longer it went on, the more you had to think it. Now, crazy things happen. We've seen people right up to the goal line before, but you just can't feel great if you're an Ole Miss fan right now. You'll feel better for about 3 hours on Saturday, but that's about it.
That's about it. Well, when they asked him about it the other day and he said, I ain't had any time to think about that. You knew that question was coming eventually. The Ole Miss media has continued to get bolder and more direct in the questions. And I give him credit for that they ask in his weekly press conferences. But there's no way you held a team meeting and told them that you were all in and you were staying here no matter what. And then your answer is, I haven't had time to think about that at all. It just, none of it tracks. And I do feel bad for them though. They are on a playoff run and it definitely takes the wind out of your sails, makes it difficult to, really buy in and what your coach is telling you if you think he might have one foot out the door.
Yeah, that's true. It definitely does feel like a cloud, probably for their fans more than their players, right? Because the players get to live it. But you're going through this run, it feels like, knock on wood, they're not going to, fumble at the goal line here and not make the playoff. But at the same time, can't you turn around and say look, we're all in right now. We know we've got a month left with this guy. We need to give him everything we've got. We got to give these players, more importantly, everything that we've got. I think there's two sides of that where you'll see some fans probably be like, I'm done. This guy's leaving. Who cares? And others who are kind of going to rally around that and say look, coaches always come and go. We're always going to have players on our team who want to bleed for this program. Let's go support them. So I think you'll kind of see both of those happen. So I definitely feel more for the players, right? And the other guys on that staff more than I do their fans. But
I don't definitely at all. But I do feel bad for the team as kids that have done the work and have put in the time and bought into what Kiffin is telling you. But I do think as a fan, a coach that has taken your program to heights that you've never been before, leaving you for a better program, I think you say thank you and go,
I see both.
Better, but
that's easy. Okay, I'll push back. That's easy for you guys to say as Florida fans. And it would be easy for me to say as a Florida State fan too. But it does suck to have that reality check, right?
Yeah.
It sucks to know you're not in that elite tier.
But it happens in a nice fan base, though.
I mean, yeah, every SEC fan base sucks except for Vandy. Let's be honest. Like Tennessee's fan base sucks. Georgia's fan base sucks. Like everyone has their jokes.
I have not gotten the kind of vitriol. Now,
Listen, you've gotten it from UCF.
It's
All right. So, but let me finish this point. Before Allie goes off on how bad UCF or Ole Miss fans are. That realization does suck.
Yeah.
Like that is because you think you're an elite program. They continue to be in the top 10. They continue to get 10-win seasons. And yeah, do I feel bad? No, my team's won 6 games in 2 years. I don't feel bad for anybody. You could tell me you died on the field and I'd be like, man, that sucks, man. Shouldn't have stormed it. But no, I don't feel bad in that regard because you still have it better than a lot of people. Shoot, they have more wins this year than both our teams combined, right? So like we could count you guys twice and they'd still have more wins than what our teams have. But I do think that sucks as a fan, especially because college football fans have been asked more lately than ever. You got to not only pay for these buildings, you got to pay for the program, you got to pay for these coaches that were given stupid salaries and big buyouts to. And now you got to pay for the players. And we're going to continue to, I mean, I see posts every day from all these collectives begging for more money. And I'm just like, look, the University of Florida's athletic department pulled in $200 million. Stop asking people for money, right? And it's not just UF, it's everybody. But so fans have been asked for more. And after they have shown up, Ole Miss has done a great job for their resources, showing up and giving and doing everything else that they've done. It is very much a slap, not a slap in the face, but a very harsh reality check.
Yeah.
And so I understand the being frustrated with that because what do they do to ever keep a coach from a UF or an Alabama? Or I mean, they need to win 3 of the next 10 titles, right? And then they'll be on the same level. But yeah, I mean, so I get their side of it. Like, I'm not telling you I feel bad because again, I can't feel bad. I have nothing left. I have no emotion left attached to the sport after it's been beat out of me. But I do understand their plight.
Well, I do too. I don't, I mean, if they weren't so unrealistic from the beginning, then this probably wouldn't hurt so much, but it also wouldn't be as fun for us. So I guess I'm okay with it. But I also will say, like crazy things could have and could happen, right? Until the ink dries, which won't happen until he's finished coaching at Ole Miss. They go on a deep playoff run. Let's say they win the national championship. I could see a scenario where you completely rethink that, right? You've taken this program to a place it's never gone before. You've cemented your legacy, and they are never getting rid of you. And so, I mean, crazier things have happened. I don't think it's likely, but
if they win a national championship, do you think he stays, Will?
I think it's possible. Yeah,
I think it's possible. At the same time, couldn't you look at it then if you're laying and say, "All right, I did it." Like what else do I? At that point,
what you need.
Yeah.
Does he really want to retire in Oxford and just kind of be the king of Ole Miss? Or as a type A sort of competitor that you have to be a head coach, does he then say, what's next? Like, I'm going to go do it at this bigger school. I'm going to go do it at a place that's been struggling recently. Like, I want that. It probably does a bit of both ways, honestly, to where, like, you've won the championship. It feels more secure. You know what your legacy is going to be. But then at the same time, like, there's sort of a complacency factor where it's like, all right, just did it. Now what? Like, I wonder if that's also being said.
We've talked about this several times that like you are wired one way or the other. And one of those ways is the innate need to fly too close to the sun and, to see if you can do it. And I think that's how Kiffin is wired. I think part of the miscalculation by Ole Miss fans this entire time is that Lane has referred to Oxford as home and talked about like the change that he has made as a person being there and things. And so fans have conflated that with this is what he sees as home, when in reality, I think that he views Florida, not necessarily the University of Florida, the state of Florida, as home. He spent a very long period of time in Tampa. That is where his family was from. That is where the Reeves family is from. Layla lived in Tampa most of her life. She also spent some time in Gainesville in South Carolina. But, their first date happened on Florida's field. So if you're talking about a place that signifies home, I think it's a miscalculation by Ole Miss fans to assume that home is Oxford. I really think it is Gainesville, and that's probably part of this scenario.
How much does Ole Miss win by because of this?
I mean, do they win? I mean, they do have added.
I wonder how much UF has checked in. I wonder what kind of game you get from Lagway.
Audition for them. They should be all the way.
They're playing for
these players wanting to be on the team next year. I don't think they care.
I said 38-20 was my prediction, and maybe scoring 20 points is generous. for Florida's offense, but I, haven't been overly impressed with Florida's defense. Last week, they just I don't know, forgot to get on the team plane. I'm not really sure what happened there, but if you can give up 38 to Kentucky, you're probably giving up at least 38 to Ole Miss.
Yeah, Allie, I didn't even give a score on your show yesterday. I have in my notes 45 to 40 for my own show, but I mean, if Ole Miss wants to, why can't they score 57? It feels like there's a world where this gets bad because I do think Ole Miss wants it. Those players, those fans, they all want this really bad for more reasons than just the football game, which is what we've been talking about. So there's a world that gets ugly because what TJ said, I have no idea what kind of effort the Gators get.
Yeah.
What's the meltdown look like if Florida doesn't get Lane? Because all of Florida believes it to the nth degree at this
You're
point.
disbanding the program.
It's
You have to restart
it down.
You have to restart in 2030.
I think that it signifies something went wrong. I think from the things that I know you guys have heard a lot of the same things I have. And I think for it to have gotten this far down, if it doesn't actually happen, there was a breakdown somewhere. Something went wrong. And figuring out, what you do next is a big deal because by the time, unless he signs an extension in the next couple of weeks, you will have wasted a lot of time for him not to be your guy. And then who is left that isn't an absolute letdown to your fan base? I could see a scenario where we get riots like Tennessee and Texas A&M when they tried to hire guys that their fan base didn't agree with. And that's not generally Florida's fan base's MO. I know we've been joking a lot about boosters getting to control the purse strings this time around and stuff, but Florida doesn't usually operate in a scenario where their boosters call the shots. That is a very Auburn thing. That's a very LSU thing. I think we saw it with Tennessee and Texas A&M. That's not something that has generally happened historically at Florida. If they don't get Kiffin and it's a group of five name or a coordinator with no experience or something like that, not a splash, it's going to be a very large problem for Scott Strickland.
It is. If they don't get Kiffin, you have to make Lincoln Riley say no at that point because then you can kind of pitch this guy's Lane Kiffin from the West. I don't want him as much as I want Kiffin, but you can kind of pitch that to your fans and it's like, look, we didn't get Lane, but here's JV Lane, and it's a guy who's proven he can win games and he'd be a similar style. But if it's not Kiffin and Riley hasn't either extended or found another job, because I think he might be on the move this year, you have to make Riley an offer that is out of this world.
Hey, I saw a reel this week. I know that Drinkowitz's name has come up some. I saw a reel this week that I don't know if this is accurate or not, but that since 2020, Drinkowitz has 0 wins against teams that finished above 500 in the SEC.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw that. I've seen that stat too, think about us joking about Missouri's record the last 2 years, TJ, when we've done preview shows of the summer. We've talked about how they should be able to trip into 10-2.
Right. And they normally do. They normally get to 9 or 10 wins, but 0 wins. I mean, and admittedly, obviously your record's going to be better again, but all of their SEC wins, every good thought I had about Drinkowitz, which I've gone from he's a weirdo to he wouldn't be that bad to, they win a lot of games. Every single win is against a team that didn't finish above 500. For context, Napier had 4 of them. Mm-hmm. Was the video that I saw over Napier's career. He had so yeah, he lost a lot to the good teams that were above 500. That's an insane stat. I know that we're talking about Lane, but Drinks is absolutely atrocious.
Yeah. All right. Well, TJ, do you have a actual prediction on this one?
Yeah, I think you guys get Lane. Is that what we're doing? Or no,
This is losing the battle but winning the war. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ole Miss can call their shot here. Maybe they keep it a little closer. Maybe he doesn't embarrass the 50 guys or so that are going to be on the team next year. But they can do whatever they want. I think in this, I don't even know how much Florida cares. I think it's just kind of get us out of the season, get back to the swamp. If you beat Tennessee, then you'll care about the last game. I don't know, 30. No, I think they get into the 40s. 41 to, I'll say 20. I'll say they can get it to 20 just from a lot of possessions.
I do. There's a comment on the side that I do think is interesting. They used the quote. There was TJ. It was something that you said is for their resources. You said, I think Ole Miss did a really good job for their resources. And then Mooney says that explains the whole situation. And it does. Mm-hmm. It's just, I said at the beginning, there is levels to this. And while NIL has leveled the playing field a little bit, maybe a lot. I still don't think it has completely erased the gaps that exist between some of the perceived powerhouses and some of the perceived second tier teams. And even if you look at the last 10 years, I think UF has had more New Year's Six bowl game appearances during that time period than Ole Miss does. I think there was a bowl ban in there for Ole Miss at one point, so I would have to go back and look at what their season records were and would they have been at one if not. But Lane is why Ole Miss is good. Ole Miss isn't good, and Lane happens to coach there. They are winning because of him, and I do think that it's the next person they hire is not going to be Lane. So it's going to be hard to maintain. But let's pivot. Let's talk about some of these games that are coming up. We've got there's some good games this weekend. TJ, I'm very sad for you that you'll be at Legoland and I'll be texting you from the comfort of my couch. I do have a soccer game at 10 a.m., but it'll be over before the games start. Let's talk about Alabama, Oklahoma. This one is massive. It's a potential, I don't know, is it fair to call it a potential elimination game between these two teams? And I think both of these teams still believe that they belong in the top four. And Alabama looks very different now than they did week one when they lost to Florida State. Ty Simpson is kind of cruising at this point. They got a little bit of a rhythm. And, this is a fun matchup to watch. TJ, two very good offenses. What's going to be the difference, though?
I think this is a tricky spot for Bama just because they haven't looked great offensively the last 2 weeks. Well, they had a bye in between their two games, but they didn't look great offensively for 3 quarters against South Carolina. And then they didn't look great offensively against LSU last week either. And so I think Oklahoma's defense could be what'll keep them in this thing. I do think that Bama's defense too will limit Mateer in Oklahoma a little bit, but they've had a bye week to get more healthy, more rhythm, I guess, with Mateer, who has looked shaky since coming back. I guess he was good against Tennessee. But Oklahoma's defense to me is the X factor. And I think they need to go out and hold Bama like under 20 to be able to do it, because I don't know that I have confidence that their offense can score more than 20 to 24-ish against that Bama defense that's been really good lately. But if there was anybody in the SEC whose defense could really limit a pretty good offense and a quarterback who is playing as well at times this year as anybody else in the conference, I do think it's Oklahoma's defense. So their pass rush, I think, will get after Simpson. I think they'll limit the run, and not that Bama's been good on the ground. I mean, they're just, at this point of the season, you kind of are what you are. You're not going to just come up with a running game in week, what are we in, 12? So yeah, I think their defense is my biggest question mark. If they can hold Bama at or around or below 20, then they'll have a great shot in this thing.
Well, do you think that Oklahoma has been maybe a little bit overlooked since they lost to Ole Miss? And, what would a win in Tuscaloosa, which I think is kind of like the gold standard for showing that you are, you're the top of the conference, you're one of those top teams. What would that do for this program?
I mean, it would do a lot, and it would remind everybody how good this team really is, because I think you're definitely right. They have been overlooked because they haven't looked fun, right? Like you came into the year with, John Mateer, all these new receivers, all these new weapons. When a quarterback gets surgery on his throwing hand, that's going to happen, right? And it's kind of, Oklahoma's being treated because of that, like they're not as good of a team anymore. They still are. And their biggest problem, at least offensively, beginning of the year, was that they couldn't run the ball. I think they can run the ball in this game. So ever since Xavier Robinson for them has been getting more carries, that rushing offense has come alive. And Bama's rush defense is 11th in the SEC in yards per game and 14th in yards per carry. Like, that is where they're weak. Oklahoma is not going to be able to throw the ball on Bama a lot because of how good Bama's secondary is. I'm not sure they really have to very much. I think if you have Robinson, Blaylock, and Mateer do a sort of a three-headed attack on the ground game, they can really move the ball on Bama's defense. On the other side of the ball for me in this one, the health of R. Mason Thomas is huge for a lot of reasons, because he hurt his hamstring against Tennessee on that scoop and score where he had the tight end for 45 yards. He's questionable right now, so I'm assuming that he goes. But if he's not 100%, that pressure on Ty Simpson that TJ talked about, it might not be what it needs to be. So I do think Oklahoma's been overlooked because they haven't been flashy. They haven't been fun. This is a really good football team who has beaten several other really good football teams. So you go get this one in Alabama, you're back on the map. It locks you into a playoff spot as long as you don't drop a home game to Missouri or LSU, which they really shouldn't do at the end of the year. So if you're at Oklahoma, you win this game, everything's out in front of you to make the playoff.
So do you think it's fair to say that Bama needs this win more?
No, because if Bama drops this, then what? They'd be 10-2 with only one conference loss.
Yeah,
As
they'd
long
be
as they
fine.
just don't lose to Auburn, they're fine. Because I do think if Oklahoma drops this, they won't let Oklahoma in as 3 losses because then they wouldn't really have a marquee win that like some of the other schools will have. Because if you have 3 losses, you got to have a massive win, and Oklahoma just wouldn't if they drop this game. So I do think it's bigger for Oklahoma because Bama, as long as you don't die in Jordan Hare, they'll be okay regardless long term.
TJ, do you think that this is going to be the like low scoring defensive slugfest that Vegas thinks it is?
Yeah. Will, do you have the over under in front of you? I just don't have it pulled up.
45.5, yeah.
Yeah. Man, I think I like under that, but at the same time, college football's, points are scored, right? And so wouldn't shock me at all if we got to 27-24 because we go overtime or something ridiculous like that, and then I end up losing the bet. But I do think it's lower scoring. I mean, unless Bama just kind of revert. I mean, Bama scored 20 in their last game, right? And then for 3 quarters, they were not great against South Carolina. Like, I'd just be a little surprised if they came out guns blazing and scored a ton on Oklahoma. What gets weird, though, is, I mean, Tennessee put up 500 yards against Oklahoma, but you get a scoop and score and another short field and another turnover. Like, I think I expect there to be turnovers in this game, multiple. And I don't know if that's one from each team or what. Like, Mateer has been somewhat reckless at times, and Oklahoma's done a good job of also forcing turnovers, whether that be strip sacks or interceptions or whatever. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if you do get some short fields in this that kind of lead to a few more scores. But if we have a 24-21 game and a lot of that or some of that comes off of 2 short fields or a short field and a scoop and score or a pick 6 or something, then it still was that defensive game. We just got a little more points than we thought. So yeah, I expect it to be pretty defensive. I think these are 2 of the better defenses in the league and thus the country. And then 2 quarterbacks that against these defenses can, and I think will potentially turn the ball over. So yeah, I think it's lower scoring. I think it's defensive, but yeah, watch it be like 28-21 because we have a pick 6 and a scoop and score, something that screws up my under.
All right. I've got a 2-part question for each one of you. I want you to each give me your score prediction, but I also want you to tell me the one stat that's going to tell us who wins. Is it turnovers? Is it yards per play? Is it sacks? Is it something else? Explosives? What is it that's going to tell us who wins and what's the score?
So I got Oklahoma here. I think they pull it off. I'm going like 27-24. I do think it goes over because you'll see for both offenses, they're going against good defenses, but Oklahoma wants to run it. That's where Bama's soft. Bama wants to pass it. That's where Oklahoma's soft. So I think you'll get actually some decent action offensively. And the stat, I wanted to say rushing yards for Oklahoma, but Bama's not going to rush it at all. I mean, probably it's a cop-out answer. Probably it's turnovers, right? Because if you get one drive where Ty hangs one over the top and a safety picks off for Oklahoma, or Xavier Robertson gets his 25th carry and he's tired and he fumbles it. Like this feels like to me a spot where you're going to see one turnover in like the 3rd quarter that helps one team go by 10, and then they just keep going back and trading blows, but 2 scores is too much to overcome.
All right, TJ.
Yeah, I'm going to go Bama here, but with very low confidence. I think this is a terrible matchup for them. I don't know that I've seen enough from Oklahoma to know that they could win this big game. I think the wins against Michigan are good. I think the Tennessee win is good, especially if Tennessee finds a way to, I mean, we say they don't have a marquee win yet, and I do think they're a little bit, which I agree with Will on that, but if Michigan goes out and somehow beats Ohio State for the 17th year in a row, I guess, then, I mean, they got lucky that they played them early, and Bryce Underwood's obviously playing better now, but that'd be a really good win. If Tennessee, who is like top 25 right now, if they go win in the Swamp and then they go beat Vandy at the end of the year too, that'll be close to a top 15 to 18-ish team too. So those would be 2 good wins. But until, I don't know, man, I just have a little bit more faith in Simpson, but I think Oklahoma's defense is a nightmare. I'll say Bama wins 23-20. So just under the over-under. Turnover is a good one. I think Will is probably right there. I'll go 3rd down percentage. Obviously that's important in any game, but Bama's been really good in third and short, and third and longer they've struggled more. I mean, every team does. That's not me breaking any news there. But I also think that on the same side, if Oklahoma is able to stay ahead of the 6, I thought, the one time we've seen Alabama lose this year, one thing that Florida State did really, really well was stay ahead of the sticks. There were not a lot of third and long conversions. They did a good job of being in third and 3 to 5, and they found a lot of success because of that. So I think if Bama's pretty good on third down, they'll probably find a way to win, just extend drives, and keep that Oklahoma defense, which is really good on the field. And then conversely, if Oklahoma wins the third down metric, then, I think they've got a good chance to keep that Bama defense on the field and keep, Bernard and Williams and all those guys off the field scoring on them.
All right, well, I'm going to go 24-17 Bama. And because your girl's married to a punter, I'm going with special teams being the difference in this one. I want to see a punt block, a kickoff return, like something, some kind of.
Do kickoff returns even happen anymore? Is that a thing still?
Listen.
I hate these rules.
For this one. But all right, well, they're so this is an embarrassment of riches, the games that are this weekend. Haha, TJ, that you're at Legoland.
We're not staying there till 9 p.m. Some of these games are not we're just going for the morning. I'll be back.
Well, let's talk about another big one. This one, I mean, you could argue this is the biggest game of the weekend. Texas versus Georgia. I think Georgia is elite. Even though we've said all season long, we think that they are maybe a tick behind where Kirby Smart teams normally is, which is still a tick ahead of where most teams are. But, and this Texas team today is not the Texas team that we watched, just a few weeks ago lose in the swamp. Is this, is this a statement game for Georgia? Is this their ability to say, hey, guys, we are still the king of the SEC? Well,
I think it is. And the public won't think that because of how slow Texas has looked, right? In their touchdown favorites. Texas is a better team than Georgia roster-wise. So in actual football reasons, in my opinion, this is absolutely a statement win for Georgia, right? Because you're getting one of the best defenses in the country coming in. You're getting a team that feels like maybe they're turning a corner offensively with all those weapons. And if you're Georgia, right, they're still alive in the SEC race. Yeah, they are. So this is a massive game to try and keep getting to Atlanta and just to beat another great team and effectively knock out a threat out of the playoffs. Because for Texas and Oklahoma, I think it's the same story, right? 3 losses. Texas, if they go beat A&M, they can get that big win. But if you're able to knock out Texas, who is a massive threat out of the playoff, as well as also just asserting your own dominance of look, this is still our conference, right? That's a massive win for Georgia. I think they have a good shot at it because this is their first home game since they beat Ole Miss. So they haven't played in Sanford in forever. So I think that place will be electric. They'll be happy to be back. So I do think it's a bigger statement game for Georgia than most people would tell you that it is.
TJ, Arch Manning has been up and down. Are we going to see the good Arch or the bad Arch in this game?
I think I think better. I don't know that I want to say all the way good, but I do think he'll play well in this. I think just where his confidence is compared to where it was early in the year, Ohio State, UTEP, those games that they were struggling in, the game in the swamp. I think his confidence is a lot better. I think something changed in that Mississippi State game when he led them back. And I know that it is Mississippi State, but 17 points in a quarter deficit is still impressive. I don't care who you're playing on the road in the SEC. That's still impressive. And then the way that they carved Vandy up, who has a very veteran defense. I know that it's still Vandy. And so, I'm not trying to hype so much a Mississippi State Vandy combo here, but I think his confidence is a lot better. I also think that Texas' offensive line will do a good job against Georgia's pass rush. And if he's not insane athlete that's going to make a bunch of people miss or juke and jive to evade just an insane amount of pressure. But I think they can utilize his legs a little bit too. I think he'll have a good game. I'm not saying that I think they go out and win or anything, but I mean, we saw Ole Miss put points up on Georgia. We saw Bama put points up on Georgia. We saw, Tennessee put points up. I think Texas will score here. And so, I think that we saw DJ Lagway look, halfway decent against this Georgia team. So I think there's a good chance that Arch has a good game. I don't know that translates to winning, but it certainly could.
Will, I read an article today that basically said trying to paraphrase here, but that Texas plays like it's trying to invent ways to come as close as possible to losing. Do you agree with that? And what is the one area where they have to be dominant in to come away with a victory?
If they're gonna win this game, they need to dominate the run game defensively, because that's what Georgia wants to do, right? Stockton's play good. They have good receivers. They want to wear you down and then throw quick passes. In Texas' defense, they're only allowing 2.4 yards per carry and 78 yards per game. Like, this run defense is incredible. So if they do want to go pull this upset, that defense has to live up to what it's been doing and stop what is probably going to be one of the better rushing attacks that they faced all year. Because if you do that, you can take some of the crowd out of it if their offense is doing very much, and then all of a sudden your offense is much more comfortable. And in terms of Texas playing games to almost lose, like, Georgia's doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I'm not saying that referees are doing this, but you are Jackson Arnold scoring and Michael Sherman catching that ball away from Georgia being 6-3. Like, they're also flying incredibly close to the sun. So really, both teams are doing it, and
Yeah.
I think Georgia's made it a little more obvious. So if that happens to them again, if they get behind by 10 points, I don't really care that you're at home. This is an incredible defense and the best team you've played talent-wise all year. I don't think
Yeah.
they can do it this week, which obviously is the last thing everybody says before Kirby Smart does it again. But I
Yeah.
feel like they can't do that same thing this week.
Yeah. I agree. TJ, what is the one matchup that you are watching the absolute closest? Is it Manning versus Georgia's secondary? Is it Texas's pass rush versus Georgia's offensive line? Is it like what battle do you think will be a microcosm of the game as a whole?
Yeah, I think if you want to beat Georgia, you have to. I mean, Gunner has been very good this year, and maybe better than a lot of people expected,
Yeah.
because they thought there'd be, how does he keep pulling these guys out of nowhere to be? I mean, not out of nowhere. Obviously, he was a good recruit, but just like, oh well, there'll be a drop off with Gunner. Well, there hasn't been, but I do think that if Texas can continue, and Will mentioned it, if Texas can continue to shut down to even just limit Georgia's rushing attack, and you make them pretty one-dimensional, I still think they can beat you being one-dimensional, because they have been good through the air, and I like Zachariah Branch, and I think their weapons are certainly much better than they were last year. But I think if you can shut down their run or get as close to possible as shutting down that run, I just think that makes it tougher. And we talked about in the last game, just staying ahead of the sticks. And if you're putting it all on Gunner's shoulders, yeah, I think that's could spell trouble. And I wonder how much they try to establish the run, or how much they just say, you know what, we'll just pass to beat you. And so I think that's a big part of it, is Texas's front.
All right, prediction time. Vegas has the Bulldogs at -6. The over-under is 48.5. So defensive struggle is what's being predicted here. Will, give me your score.
Yeah, so I'm taking a little bit over that game, actually. And when I started to preview this game, my first thought was, yeah, I'm taking Georgia here. It's fine. Then I went through everything. I like Texas a lot in this game. I got my second upset in a big spot here. So I want Texas like 31-24, because I think they can throw it around pretty well on a Georgia secondary that we've seen be vulnerable really in multiple games this year. And Georgia's offense, they'll still get theirs, right? Because even if the running game is stopped, I do think that Branch will break a big one. But I like Texas on the road here to keep their playoff hopes alive, 31-24.
TJ?
I think, boy, Will's just got what do you call it? More intestinal fortitude is maybe the way to say it, for PG purposes. I wish I could pick one of these upsets. I would love to see both these upsets just for the playoff chaos that could ensue. We'll talk about that, I guess, in 2 segments. But yeah, I think Georgia gets this done. They've been inconsistent too. Will's completely right about that. The thing about Georgia, and I've said this a few times, so sorry to steal from myself, you don't have to be better than them for 4 quarters, but you have to be better for them for the fourth quarter, or better than them in the fourth quarter. Because if it's anywhere within striking distance, Georgia just never quits, and they never you better make sure they're dead before you get up and celebrate. So I don't know. I think Georgia finds a way. It wouldn't shock me at all if Texas is up 10 in this game and Georgia just does what Georgia does. Also, I think Will's completely right. Like, this is probably not the opponent you want to do that against. We saw how that went down for Oklahoma, but I think Georgia finds a way. I don't know, 31-28. It's a good game. They're just a little too much.
When you say the find a way, I think about that Jurassic Park quote, life finds a way. Like literally that is this Georgia team. They just find a way. I predict Georgia 34-30. I think it's going to be a close game. I think the over hits. I think that the line is covered, and I think this is going to be a fun one. All right. Well, we are moving on to the last game we're going to talk about on this show, Texas A&M and South Carolina. I think these are two teams kind of headed maybe in opposite directions. The Aggies maybe quietly, maybe don't get the same kind of fanfare as the Georgia and the Alabama and maybe even the Texas, even though they haven't looked as good as Texas A&M, but they've quietly been building momentum. And I think South Carolina's just struggling, all the way around. A&M's defensive front is elite, so you would think would control the line of scrimmage. And, I don't know. I think this is an interesting game, and I think there's so much pressure on A&M and almost none on South Carolina. Is it a trap game, Will?
It could be. I don't think it is, though. I think A&M is the best team in the country. I think they should be number one because they're fourth in the SEC in total offense. Carolina is dead last. A&M is scoring 18 more points per game than Carolina is, and I kind of would think that trap spot, the pressure could get to you. We're in a day and age where A&M could lose this game and be totally fine, right? Because they'd still have a loss, so all of a sudden getting to Atlanta's a little harder. But A&M's not dropping out of the playoff for losing this game. It'd be a really bad loss, and people would say they should. But there's less pressure on them this year than there would have been even 2 years ago. And there's only 4 teams in the playoff, so there is a trap element. But like you said, Carolina is just a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to be awesome. I was so high on Souls coming into the year. The whole thing is just broken. They don't really do anything well offensively. The one thing that they do well is they pick people off pretty well. They have 9 picks on the year, which is high for 4th in the SEC. So that's kind of their route, right? If A&M wants to go explosive passes sometimes, if they're able to jump some of those routes and just pick Reed off once or twice, that's really their only way. But I think A&M knows that they can just lean on these guys and play it safe, still take some shots to their guys. But I do think A&M has their way in this one.
If A&M wins, they are basically a college playoff lock, right? Is that a fair statement, TJ?
Yeah, I can't see that because so who does A&M have next week?
Samford.
Yeah, so they're not losing that, right? And then they could lose by 40 to Texas, and they're not getting dropped out at 11-1. So yeah, this is a college football playoff clincher. We talked about Ole Miss in the first segment. So is their game, right? If they win this, I think they could lose the Egg Bowl and probably still get in. So, or if they win this, they could lose the Egg Bowl and still get in. So yeah, I think it's the same thing with A&M here, And so when you typically might expect like kind of a trap game feel, like I think that's all the motivation you need is, boys, you win this and you're going to the college football playoff. And, football's weird and weird things happen. And we haven't had one of those chaos Saturdays in November yet. And maybe that's the one we get it where Will's right on those last 2 games and A&M gets knocked off and Pitt beats Notre Dame and just all this crazy stuff happens. But at the same time, man, it would really surprise me if they were able to do it this one. It felt like they gave everything they had in that Bama game, and they had them right. They had a great shot to go win that game, and they just couldn't get it done. And I just felt like that was so deflating. Maybe if they had proven it to you there that they could get it done, you'd have a little bit more faith. I think this is a really tall hill for them to go and climb. Add to the fact that it's on the road and you don't get the Williams-Brice effect and you're playing in front of 100,000 people and all this stuff. Like, I think it would take a generationally bad game from Marcel Reed, which he looked more accurate last week against, I know that he hasn't had like the highest accuracy this year, but he looked really good against Missouri and he was more accurate. And I would think you'd need a really bad game from him, but I don't even think you have to lean on that. Like Will said, like you can take a couple of shots, but I just think you have to kind of get out of your way and let South Carolina implode, which they've done that several times this year. And as long as you do that, you'll be fine.
Sorry guys, I just got a text message that my sister's in the hospital having her baby, so I was a little distracted
that
there.
Kid can wait. Tell that kid to chill out.
Right? I'm like, oh my gosh, this is okay. So yay, I'm about to be an aunt for like the bajillionth time. Very exciting, but okay. So how big of an upset? I know you said Texas A&M is the best team in the country, Will, and that this is not going to be a trap game because they're not going to be caught off guard. But let's say it happens. How big of an upset is it for Shane Beamer and Sellers? And could it completely change the narrative of South Carolina's season? I think, a lot of people are kind of waiting for the shoe to drop. Like, is Beamer's time at South Carolina coming to an end? Does this save him? Does this rejuvenate this program? Does this outlook just look different?
I think it does. And I mean, you totally described me just then. Like, I was kind of waiting on Beamer to maybe go after the Bama game. They fired Mike Shula instead, which I think bought Beamer some more time. If you win this game, you can all of a sudden go say, look, we're still right there. Things just didn't go well for us earlier in the year. We let the Bama game slip away. If we had won that and this game, this is entirely different. So, I mean, you saw Carolina turn around late last year. This is not the same situation at all as last year, but I mean, we know the type of caliber that Carolina does have. Like, they have Nick Harbaugh, receiver, who no one can cover one-on-one. You have an alien at quarterback in Sellers. You have Dylan Shirt off the edge. Like, you have those individual pieces where if they're all on in the same game, dude, they can really beat anybody, really by themselves. So it's not impossible. I'd give it a 5% chance, but I do think you're right. Like, if Carolina does go win this game, all of a sudden everyone can just kind of take a deep breath and is like, look, we had a second-year quarterback this year. We didn't have any weapons out wide. It just didn't work out. But Stewart will be back. Sellers will be back. You'll have all these guys coming back who are those aliens that you can kind of build off and say, now we get more talent around them. We can have a way better 2026.
All right, TJ, who wins the battle between A&M's front seven and South Carolina's offensive line? Or is this just a silly question because this has already been decided?
Yeah, I'd take A&M. I'd take A&M's front seven against most teams in the league right now. And so, yeah, I have a hard time seeing South Carolina keeping Sellers clean. He is a magician, like Will said, or an alien, whatever word you use. So I'm sure he'll get out of some stuff. But, man, the hits over and over again, I think that's going to play a factor. I don't expect this to be super competitive into the fourth quarter, maybe not even the second half. We'll see. If it was at home for South Carolina, I'd feel better, but I think A&M's front is just going to be too much here.
Okay, what's the key matchup to watch? Well,
I think it's Carolina's secondary because that is the one thing where I think they could get some wins because they have good corners. And A&M's receivers, Craver, Concepcion, they're great and very explosive. But if Carolina, all you have to do is win 3 specific reps and go get that ball, and you can totally change the entire game. So I think the matchup is, can Carolina's DBs capitalize on what they're able to do, and can they keep those receivers contained to the tune of, we can turn this guy over once or twice, and all of a sudden A&M is forced to play, like this is a big-time game, as opposed to being able to be comfortable, be calm, and just let their better talent do it. So I think it's Carolina's secondary.
All right, give me your score predictions. Start with you.
Yeah, it's not good. I have A&M like 31-14. I would do it higher, but I do think the Aggies just kind of let off the gas a little bit at the end. But it is worth noting, like, the best offense A&M's played in conference is probably Arkansas, and with Taylor Green and those guys, they give up 42 there. So it does seem like when you have these types of dynamic playmakers, even if it's just 3 guys total, as long as they're in different spots of the field, all doing what they can do, you can score on these guys. I don't really see it happening because I think at that point Arkansas was still playing. I'm a little worried Carolina's just kind of obligated to fly out there this week. So yeah, I think it's loosely possible, but I'll go 31-14 A&M.
TJ, the line is 19.5 in favor of the Aggies. What's your score prediction?
Yeah, 37 to, let's say they cover 37-14. I'll say they cover fairly easily. South Carolina gets a late touchdown to make it look better.
I wrote down 34-14, so kind of right between the two of you guys. I think A&M easily takes care of business here too. And Will, I kind of agree. I think Texas A&M may be the best team in the country, and I feel like I say that as a person that's watched Georgia against my team. We've watched Miami, who obviously have fallen off a cliff now, but at the time was considered one of the best teams in the league. So, I think I agree. I think Texas A&M may be the best team in the country, but you got to win the games you're supposed to win. And that's what Saturday is. Okay. So we have talked about the big games that are happening this weekend, the fun storylines, but an ongoing storyline, through, the entire, last few weeks has been the college football playoff rankings. there are some wild scenarios that could potentially play out. And, since my team is out, I cheer for all the chaos. What, Will, I think was it in our group text message? One of you guys sent a scenario where there's 7 teams with 10 wins or better in the SEC. In that scenario, tell me those teams: Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, Vanderbilt, Tennessee. Was it Missouri?
Tennessee and Missouri were out of it. So it'd be A&M, it'd be Bama, Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas, Vandy, and Oklahoma. They all have paths to get to 10 wins. And for A&M and Bama, they play in Atlanta, obviously. But you're looking at 7 potential 10-win teams in the SEC. And if that happens, I mean, the team that misses out is probably Vanderbilt because they wouldn't have that next level win. I hate saying that because I want to see Vandy in the playoffs so bad. But like obviously, let's say you do have 7 10-win SEC teams. Oregon, who is at number 8, they still have to play USC and they have to go to Washington. Those are both losable games. They could also be another 10-2 team. Notre Dame, this game against Pitt is not easy. Even though Narduzzi came out and said that he'd be fine losing by 100, that's still a tough spot. So you have all these other teams, and Miami's still in the mix for whatever reason, but a lot of other teams could also be at 10-2. So then you can look at, just in this example, because I think Vandy's the odd one out there, 10-2 Vandy versus the resume of a 10-2 Miami. Like what's really being valued there? Because I mean, the ACC, that doomsday scenario where they may get no team in the playoffs says it for itself. The ACC is just not even on the same planet. That's a different sport. So I think that if you get a Miami and Vandy of the same record, you have to go Vandy. But if it was an Oregon or Notre Dame, that's when it gets a little bit more hairy where I think, the SEC only gets 6 teams in. But I mean, with this, people would be so pissed if the SEC got half the playoff field in. But with the way the schedule lines up, it's very possible.
Yeah. TJ, what do you think? You are not an SEC homer like the other 2 people you share a screen with.
Will's less of an SEC homer than you, and tries to at least put some thought behind things. Where I feel like Allie just bleeds the blue and yellow of the SEC logo. When the orange is gone, the yellow comes out. Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. I do think that at this moment, I think they get 6. Okay. To me, it feels like Oregon and Notre Dame would have to play their way out. So if you just look at the teams like you feel that are locked in right now, I mean, Georgia could play their way out for sure too, right? But for the sake of the example, Georgia, Alabama, A&M, Ole Miss, Indiana, Ohio State, Group of 5, ACC, or another Group of 5, and Big 12. So there's 8 teams there. And we think that Notre Dame and Oregon are going to get into, right? So you're fighting for a limited number of spots. Somehow my math just didn't work out, but whatever the number was, like 11 spots are essentially spoken for.
Yeah.
In the playoff. With the 4 SEC teams, the 3 Big 10 teams, there's 7. Notre Dame's 8, ACC's 9, Big 12 is 10, and Group of 5 is 11. There's the idea of the Group of 5 might get 2 if the ACC doesn't get in with Duke. So I think you're fighting for one spot unless an Oregon or a Notre Dame plays their way out of it. I think.
Is that Vandy then? That's the odd man out?
I mean, I think it's Vandy and Oklahoma if Texas splits their last 2 games. I think
that's the question. Would an Oklahoma team who's 10-2 who just beat Alabama be left out over Notre Dame if they have the same record?
I'm sorry. So it's Oklahoma or Notre Dame?
If they both have the same record, Okie would have a win over Bama, and Notre Dame's best win would be that home game versus USC.
I think what the committee is telling you right now is that good losses don't matter. And they could change their mind on that. But right now, what they're telling us is that if you lose to A&M and Miami, we're not counting that against you. Yeah. I think there's a bigger precedent right now in the rankings. And I'm not saying I agree with this because I've never loved the idea of good losses. But I think what the committee is telling you right now is that they don't mind good losses. They like good losses more than they like good wins. Like, look at how much further Notre Dame is ahead of Miami, who beat them head to head.
Yeah.
Like Miami's got more important,
laid out why they haven't been happy with Miami,
which is totally fine. But when you look from a season-long resume, they have a head-to-head with them and a bigger win, and a loss to a still-ranked Louisville team, and a loss to an SMU team who has 1 ACC loss in 2 seasons. Yeah. And so I'm not I'm thrilled that that's the way they look at it because I don't want Miami anywhere near the playoff. But I think when you get to Selection Sunday, I think Oklahoma will have a great argument, and them beating Bama will be massive. But we'll know well before then if they beat Bama. But here's the thing: they beat Bama this weekend, huge win, right, against a top 4 team, and Notre Dame at the same time beats a top 20 Pitt. Are they moving Bama? Are they moving Oklahoma ahead of Bama on Tuesday night's playoff rankings? Like, I'm not saying they won't, but I don't know that I don't know that I'm confident they do.
Yeah,
I don't think they would either.
Because is Notre Dame 1 spot behind Ole Miss?
2
spots behind Ole Miss. You have to have that cushion, right? Like, you got to keep, because you do certainly have to keep Oklahoma behind Ole Miss because of the head-to-head. And so I don't know that they would move them ahead. And then I don't know that their wins against Missouri and LSU to finish the season are going to be enough to move them ahead. So I don't know. I also think brand matters. And I think the SEC brand and the Oklahoma brand are very strong. I think the Notre Dame eyeballs would be stronger. I think that matters for the playoff committee. Not that it should.
On your side, it is very hard to lose.
Yeah, I can't see them. I just think a 10-2 Notre Dame team gets in, especially if their 2 losses were the first 2 losses of the year. We didn't see them ever falter like we did Oklahoma at times. I don't know. I think that's a good question. I think the most interesting one, how about this? 9-3 Texas, who loses close this weekend to Georgia and then beats the number 3 team in the country. 9-3 Texas against 10-2 Vandy with the head-to-head that Texas had.
It would have to be Texas, wouldn't? I mean,
yeah,
because we've been told.
and
here's the question I have for the playoff committee:
have better wins.
Yeah,
because right
Texas
now
has better wins.
Is Missouri?
Vandy's best win will be against Tennessee at the end of the year, I think.
Tennessee, yes,
that'll be there. Like, assuming Tennessee goes and wins in the Swamp, which hasn't been done since George Bush was in office. I do think. But they told us this year that we weren't going to look strictly at wins and losses.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a 9-3 Texas with a head-to-head over 10-2 Vandy, I think Texas is the better team and the more deserving team.
I mean, it's the bigger brand, so
I think brand matters too. But if you're just the whole idea, was we're not going to punish you for bad losses,
right?
Or I'm sorry, good losses, right? And so you got a loss to the number 1 team in the country. You got to win over the number 3 team in the country. You beat Oklahoma, who is hovering around, like we're talking about, the bubble, and you lost to Georgia, who's a top 5 team. If Notre Dame's not getting penalized for losing to A&M and Miami, then I don't think you penalize Texas for losing to Georgia and Ohio State. Now, the Florida loss is there, and it happened, but I still think 9-3 Texas is probably more impressive. I think that'd be a wild precedent to set, though, to give the 9-3 team the slot over the 10-2 SEC team.
Well, I mean, did we stamp enough feet when it happened to Bama that a 9-3 Bama team was left out? Will we see an overcompensation of a 9-3 Texas team getting in? I don't know. I just don't love that there's no clean formula which I'll get on my BCS soapbox, but it irks me to no end that we have no consistency week 1 to week 2 to week 5 or whatever for these polls. And truly, they actually could do the exact same thing from the first week they do a poll all the way to the second to last week, and then completely reverse course and do something totally different the very last week, and we have no recourse on that or any real window into why that happens. And that's why this system is so flawed, in my opinion.
Yeah. I do think that the biggest domino to fall for a Vandy or Oklahoma to get in would be Oregon, because I don't think Oregon's done losing. I said they did play USC at home and at Washington. Mm-hmm. Let's say if they lose the Washington game, it's a lot cleaner. Yeah. Because then you have 10-2 going against each other. I think the SEC brands in the strength of record prevail. If USC beats them and then USC is 10-2, they wouldn't go to Indianapolis. It would be Austin, Indiana. But then you have a 10-2 USC team who would now have wins over Oregon. They would have beaten Michigan. They would have won on the road in Nebraska. They have a lost Notre Dame. But then all of a sudden you have USC in the mix, also at 10-2, who didn't go to a conference championship, who's now going against an Oklahoma, gets a Vanderbilt. There are so many chaos scenarios where you could have 18 teams here who think they deserve a spot. That's what I'm cheering for at the end of the day. I
I'll
want
tell you-
all the chaos. Give me
I
all
know,
the chaos.
I know we're primarily SEC focused, but Will, what do you do if Michigan wins out, including a win against the number 1 team in the country, and they finish 10-2, and their loss is to Oklahoma and USC, who's also way up there too? Okay, Michigan 10-2, Vandy 10-2. I think Michigan's getting in.
Michigan.
They have to if they beat Ohio State.
Yeah, which I'm not predicting that happens. I think they go 9-3. I think they win out and lose that one. But I think Michigan could soar. And again, we talk about brands, and I know that we love to hype up the SEC brands. There ain't many bigger than Michigan, man. Like that is. And if they beat Ohio State the last week there, the same way I think 9-3 Texas. If you beat A&M that last week, you're going to get a ton of credit for that.
Yeah.
And you almost wonder if Sankey would like call in a favor and be like, "Hey guys, like just drop this one. Like you're already in. Just drop it for us, and you'll be in like that." But I'll tell you, Michigan could certainly hold some things in their hand. And at that point, I think if they win out, if they beat Ohio State, you got to put them in.
I think that this playoff craziness is going to be a new segment we got to do at the end of this show for the rest of until they announce the final bracket, because there's just so many chaos scenarios that can still transpire even with just a couple weeks left of the season. Well, guys, this was fun. Before we head out of here, Will, tell everybody where they can follow you and listen to your work.
Yeah, I'm at Twitter at W Thomas Sports, and then Tailgate Talk SEC, a YouTube podcast, and everywhere else.
All right. And TJ, we college football addiction is blowing up. It's everywhere. The good news is we get to steal you once a week on here, but tell everybody where they can argue with you at.
Yeah, go do it on YouTube because Twitter sucks. But yeah, college football addiction. Go find me there.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. We will see you at our normal time next Monday at 10 a.m. unless I decide to go to Disney.
I might go next week just to piss Allie off. Will, you want to go? And I'll take you. We'll be Disney adults.